In addition to our moms, we often identify with others in our lives as mother figures. For Carri Abels, that special person was her grandmother. In 128, Carri shares how our love for someone can transcend both space and time. Carri?
This is for you, Granny. Give me a sign that you're here. I need you, a young woman whispers to the heavens in a maternity ward, waiting for her husband and the staff to descend upon her as she readies to deliver their first child, a girl. In that moment, the mother-to-be is engulfed with memories and hopes for validation, any sort of signal that the spirit of her beloved is with you and is there to share her joy. Her thoughts move to another baby girl born on January 28, 1921. 1/28/21. Jeanette Irene Carri. Yes, she rhymes. Although there was no recorded earthquake that day, I think the devil shook a little bit in his shoes as she entered the world. She was the youngest of 4 children, nicknamed Babe, which stuck with her for life. If you were privy to her old high school records, you learned she wasn't always well behaved, a B in conduct, and was described as a hustler, which wasn't surprising, as in her adult life she was a trailblazer. After high school, she married George, and they made their home in Hobart when he returned home from World War II. She birthed 3 children over 14 years, giving life in 3 separate decades, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. In addition to the family she created with George, she cared for her other family members, including an intellectually disabled brother and her father after her mom passed away from cancer. She joined a Lutheran church, and Babe took it by storm. She was a God-fearing, funeral luncheon planning, committee organizing, one-woman show. When it came to women gaining more influence in the church, she was the first to advocate for women's suffrage that gave women the opportunity to vote on church matters, be elders, and serve on committees other than funeral luncheons. She was the grandmother of 5 grandchildren, but only 1 girl, you guessed it. With a mom who worked full-time, I spent a great deal of my formative years in her care, and she was more than a grandma, but a second mom. She made me behave despite her B's in conduct. At any moment, I can recall being in her kitchen, surrounded by the smell of fruits and vegetables she was canning, running around her backyard as she hung clothes on the line. This woman was my world, and the lessons she taught me are a huge part of who I am today. As I grew older, our relationship changed, but we were very close. I still called her after school almost every day and was always free to drop in for a visit. She was the one I wanted to sit next to in the car when we went out to dinner. In college, she wrote to me almost every day. I have all of her letters, but I can't figure out an order to them. Monday, 1 o'clock, had a meeting at church. Then I went to the health club and Rosemary came over. Could be any given Monday. After the loss of my grandpa, I offered to move in with her, but having a 22-year-old roommate wasn't active for her social life and lifestyle. Then it happened in 2008, a small stroke in May, a bigger one in August that left her bedbound. I was at the house every day. Some days she was glad to see me. Other times she'd argue with me in an effort to get me to leave. One snowy day she asked me to give her a ride to church because I had things to do. Babe could not be stopped. Then came the last stroke, which put her in a coma for 8 days. On Tuesday, December 23rd, at 7:10 p.m., she slipped away surrounded by her family, a month shy of her 88th birthday. I remember some well-meaning people at the funeral telling me that she was with God now. My response was, I was greedy, and God knew it. I wanted her healthy and alive, and with me. During the last 8 days of her life, I said my last goodbyes a million times. I wrote a 6-page letter that I tucked in her coffin. Yet I still had more to say. We needed more time together. It just wasn't fair. I lost my grandma, but one of my best friends, my second mother, and my role model. She would never see me get married, run my first marathon, or meet her great-grandchild. Back in the hospital, I whisper, give me a sign, I need you. I had just given birth to my 6-pound, 15-ounce, precious gem, Ruby Jeanette Abels, in honor of my treasured grandma. My husband's on my left, my mom's on my right. I'm flanked by the 3 people who mean the world to me. The only one missing is her. The room is a flurry of activity, nurses, staff rushing in and out. One nurse reports to the other, delivery time, 1:28 p.m. My mom and I looked at each other and dissolved into tears. 1/28, my grandma's birthday. She was there, and this was my sign. I looked to the heavens and I whispered, thank you. Looking back, I never needed a sign because she is always here. If it's one thing I know, she's always, always here, guiding me, directing me through life. Some days it's easier to recognize than others. If you're here, Granny, and I know you are, thank you. I always said I'd tell your story, our story, about a truly amazing woman and our bond that has transcended a lifetime. Thank you.